I'd like to thank Kirby, who just presented about this space, and the rest of his team here at the Alley, powered by Verizon, for hosting the event. I'd also like to thank Kirk, who helped with the setup and is going to be joining me on the Startup Grind team. Some of our partners are the Boston Startups Guide and the Female Founders Alliance that help promote this event. And also I'd like to thank Mike, our videographer, for coming here today. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us, and I'd like everyone to give a warm welcome to Laurel, who's our presenter here today from FutureFuel, and she's going to tell us about about her story and hopefully give you some inspiration on your own startups that you're working on. Yeah, so if everyone. So, yeah, Laurel, thanks for joining us, and yeah, she has a startup of her own, FutureFuel, which is basically changing the way we repay student debt and allowing employers to contribute back and match and refinance along with students. Yeah, I'd love to. Can you give us a quick introduction to the company and sort of how this idea came about?
Sure. So Jason, thanks for the invitation. I'm thrilled to be here. It's like a super rainy day, so thanks for coming out. FutureFuel.io. So we exist to crush student debt, and it's our mission to really enable users to go beyond debt into a state of wellness and ultimately wealth. So I've had $150,000 of student loan debt, so this is not an academic problem for me. It's really very real. And what I know, because I've lived the story, when you graduate with student loan debt that takes 17 to 20 years to pay down, what I didn't know at the time was that I was paying compound interest on debt for 17 to 20 years. And we're really helping employers address a major need in the workforce today, because what employers are seeing is that 40 to 60% of their millennial population is opted out of 401k and retirement and many of the traditional benefits in financial health and wellness, because they have this massive blocker, right? So all of their income is going to like rent, roommates, and student loan debt. And so for me, founding FutureFuel was very much about being part of the solution and driving a solution forward at a time where we have a tremendous war for talent that employers are already fighting and looking for ways to solve that problem.
And did you sort of always know you wanted to start your own company, and sort of found the right solution or problem set in FutureFuel, or was it more just something you were really passionate about that made you get into entrepreneurship?
So I think it was actually both. So I've been a closet entrepreneur my whole life, but also in corporate. So before I founded FutureFuel, I led a global business unit for Google. Google is very much about inspiring entrepreneurial behavior and a bias to action. But really, Google is a brand that we all know, but prior to Google, I worked for many brands that were not known. And I started my career dialing for dollars. I made 75 dials a day. It was my first job out of college. And I drove revenue essentially for several different organizations over a 15-year horizon, really from small companies and making them big. And so I always lived as an intrapreneur, but for me, when I was at a couple of different life-changing events happened the time that I founded FutureFuel, and I just felt like that's just really my path and purpose. So it's time for me to get on with it and actually get it done.
Oh yeah, that's incredible. And were there, with Google and some of the other more entrepreneurial companies you worked with. Do you think that helped ease the transition at all compared to like a traditional corporate job that's not as focused on innovation?
I think actually the experience when I worked for boutique brands, I think actually that was the best training ground because there were never enough resources. There was no playbook. It's like, okay, we want to deliver X million dollars in the next 18 months, and we're currently at, you know, a modest amount of revenue of 300,000 or whatever. And so you're just doing it. You're figuring it out along the way. And I think that that's very much when you make the leap to be a founder, whether you've done it many times or I wish you know, in the future I'll say maybe many times. But I think it's really just about starting to do it and figure it out because there's a lot to figure out.
Yeah. So what was your process from you know, coming up with the idea for FutureFuel to actually going out and saying like this is something I want to do full time and sort of build a team around this? Like, yeah, how did you kick off that idea?
So I had been thinking about student debt. You know, went to undergraduate school, Texas State, from Texas, very small town originally, and never questioned that I would go to school, number one, but I also never questioned that I would have a ton of student loan debt at the same time. So I started living that without really even questioning it, and I think as Americans, culturally, I think we've surrendered to the fact that 70% of us graduate with a student loan debt, and like, isn't that an odd thing? Because a 17 to 20 year, think about 17 to 20 years of medical expenses of like $1,000 a month, right? That you realize at the age of 21. So I think it's odd that we've just kind of accepted this, but I was living it, not really questioning it. And then when I went to school at MIT, I kind of naively thought, all right, well, I've got a credit score over 800. I have a job. Let me see what this would look like. Would it make more sense to take out student loans? I was given a 9% interest rate, and I'm not, you know, I'm not a thin file credit. I've got a lot of work history, never defaulted. You know, my credit score is perfect. So that was a really profound moment for me in terms of, you know, if I'm getting a 9% interest rate, well, what is everybody else getting? And at the same time, I was at Google, which was absolutely an honor to be part of Google and to have the opportunity to lead a global business unit for them. I also realized that the top 20 tech brands have an average of 15 months retention, right? So whether you're Google or Facebook has about 2 years. So if the top 20 tech brands cannot hold on to employees for longer than 15 months, what does that mean for everyone else? And just to me, it all just was very intuitive that student debt-centric benefits would be the way to really drive what we call love and loyalty, right? You've got my back, I'm definitely gonna have yours. And it's not just repayment. You know, repayment is that contribution directly to your student loan. It's also about making refinancing accessible. It's about making other tools available to that employee population because this is their number one stress.
And yeah, so when you were going about starting this, and you know, you started bringing the idea to different companies. Were there initially, like, how did they react initially? And you know, did you get a lot of yeses and like this is a great idea, or was it sort of an uphill battle that you had to convince them?
Sure, and I'm sorry, I also did not answer your question on process. So this is like perfect segue. So, you know, as I was thinking about how to solve the problem, I was thinking about peer-to-peer, really difficult to scale. Then I finally, living in my own environment at work, realized there was this huge, really arbitrage opportunity available to employers. And I did the thing that you're definitely not supposed to do, right? Which was, I had a very personal life event occur in my family that was really devastating. And I just had this feeling of total overwhelming panic. I was just like, I had this irrational feeling that I had like 18 months, like, oh my God, like if I had 18 months, like what am I gonna do with my life, and what is it gonna be about, and what have I done now, and so I just completely pulled the ripcord and just went for it. So I started pitching employers, and I started hearing, like, employers I would meet with, they would tell me for 45 minutes about how just massive issues. How do I acquire top talent? How do I retain talent? How do I compete? I'm getting my ass kicked by Google and everybody else, right? How do I solve this problem? Here are all the problems that we have. We're looking for ways. We have all these perks. Nothing's really working. So yes, I'm willing to. Your ROI is if I offer repayment and they stay with me 2 months longer, I break even. If they stay a year, I can fund the benefit for 14 other people. Yes, that makes sense. At the same time, I was pitching institutional investors, and they were like, yeah, no, that doesn't make any sense. So I was hearing that it made sense on the market side, but I was hearing on the other side that it was a pretty radical, right? This is a new 401k. We're introducing a new 401k in our market, and it will be the most explosive benefit in the stack in the next 3 to 5 years. Like, it's happening. So as you do, you just irrationally keep going, you know, bootstrapped.
Right.
Did all the things you're not supposed to do with your own, you know, personal, and just kept going.
Yeah, and so how did you, I mean, yeah, it's great to hear, you know, you need that perseverance, that drive, and it's great to hear, you know, people, or you were listening to the customers and they were telling you, like, you're really onto something. How did you get, sort of build a team around this that was also passionate about the same issues you were working on?
Yes. Well, first, finally, we got out of bootstrap mode and had those institutionals that were willing to take a shot, like Boston Harbor Angels, who I'm a huge fan of. So anybody that's looking to fundraise should pitch Boston Harbor. And fortunately, the mission of our company really resonates, right? So we get a ton of inbound of engineers and developers and salespeople. Our team is awesome. We have a team of 11. So proud of the team that we have. They call it rise and grind every day. It's just amazing to have a team dedicated, but it's really the mission, right? It's the mission and the vision that they're dedicated to. They want to see this in the market because they want to benefit from the solution, and we obviously provide student debt-centric benefits to our own employees. But it's that vision of wanting to be able to not just help themselves, but help others around them, and something that's really an epidemic, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, and were there any? I mean, I'm sure there were, but yeah, what were some of the biggest challenges that you had to overcome to get to where you are in the business?
I'm trying to narrow them down. So we still, I mean, of course, it's challenges. I think as the founder, I always strive for better quality problems, because every day you're gonna have problems. I just want them to be better quality. Right in the beginning, it's like, okay, I'm cash out in 3 weeks. Fantastic, how am I gonna solve that one? And now the problems that we want to solve are really around how do we deliver an unbelievable experience to our users and our customers. And so I think that it's really difficult to get the first yeses. I think it's one of the most difficult problems for founders because it is a numbers game. And I was fundraising. I had never fundraised before, so I would do a ton of reading and I would ask friends, but I mean, until you start, you really have like no idea I had no idea really what I was doing. So I think that it's, you know, getting that first like check, and that first $1 million, and that first $2 million. Wow, that's a game changer, right? Because now you can bring in those resources and coordinate together. I think just getting to those first yeses and Also, one of the things I have to share as well, it's so subjective, right? Because I would pitch, let's say I pitched 20 people. The first person would say, I love this, this, and this. And then the second person that I would pitch would say, I hate those three same exact things. And so I have like 1,000 different iterations of my pitch deck. And it's really difficult to read the audience and know what's going to work. And that's a huge challenge.
Yeah, and so you mentioned a couple of them, but what are, you had some of those moments that you were like, yes, we're finally onto something. We can see that this is really going somewhere.
Like, what are some of those?
Yeah, what are some of those?
So I don't know if I can say the name of the customer, but it's so exciting. We have a major channel partnership that we're launching on Thursday of next week. Okay. And I'm going to 11 different cities across the US with this customer. They're going to see a whole lot more of me than I think they want to. And we're pitching their sales field. So they actually, I don't know if this was intentional, I'd like to think that it was, but next Thursday is the first big pitch, and the meeting request went out. Okay, there's 75 salespeople in that room, which is the most amazing thing, right? Because this is an army of inspired, our job is to inspire and make it super easy, right? Here's the playbook, here's your one pager, here are 3 bullet points for the email, here's the one tagline, crush student debt, crush your growth goals, crush your talent acquisition goals, like memorable, fast, And that is a huge breakthrough. They serve 80,000 customers and 3 million users. That's all happening in August. And then actually onboarding begins in October through the rest of the year. But that's a big breakthrough. And then we have a Fortune 100 customer who has already given us the verbal. We've been working with them for 6 months. The info security spreadsheet was 3,200 line items. And last Thursday, I learned there was a new info security spreadsheet that we were not grandfathered into for 2018. But this is the real deal, right? Because these are large companies with significant privacy measures that they have to support, as they should. But being able to get through some of those really difficult wins because of your security posture has to be appropriate, and it's so that those are two really exciting breakthroughs.
Yeah, that's great to hear, and yeah, amazing to see the traction you're getting. How do you sort of balance the next, like, if you should be going after sort of the next bigger customer, or get us a few smaller wins in the meantime?
We have focused since we launched we launched in 2016, and then we pivoted in February 2017, and then we launched our B2B2C SaaS platform that offers repayment and refinancing last September. So there was a lot of pressure actually for us to go after the big guys. But I have 15 years of enterprise sales experience, and what I knew was that we were going to get that 3,200 line item spreadsheet, and we were just not going to be able to fulfill the requirements. Or worse, we were going to spend 9 months and then find that spreadsheet at the end of a 9-month sales cycle and then not be able to complete. So we have very much focused deliberately on the SMB and mid-market space. It's fast, it's flat decision making, you cut your teeth, you launch your products, you learn, you work on if there are bugs. I think you really have to, I think you have to earn the right to do business with very large customers because they have significant obligations to their constituents. Right. And it would have been irresponsible for us to have done that earlier because we're moving money. We're moving money from one location to another. and we just would not have been ready. But I'm sure that there are many people that would totally disagree with that strategy. But now moving forward, we've really focused on channels that serve the enterprise and channels that serve the SMB and mid-market space, because regardless, we need to leverage distribution heft, and what we're bringing to these partners is innovation, and it's a really nice marriage.
And then, yeah, when you are having these conversations and going out and talking with potential customers, what are some of the reasons they say no, and how do you sort of overcome that?
Yeah, so we have learned a significant amount in the last 9 months about why customers say no. And we're launching a huge major product announcement in a month about how we're solving that problem, which is really exciting. What we learned about why customers say no, specifically around repayment. So let's say, for example, an organization is going to offer $100 every month to every employee who has student loans. So first what we heard was, something happened in September of last year where there was a tipping point between no one had really heard of this to all of a sudden all of our outbound, we were just booking the calls. And there was some sort of tipping point, and then we heard, I want to do it, I'm really excited, how does it work? And it was really about how does it work? But what we also learned was that budget. Where do employers identify budget that already exists, right? So tuition reimbursement is generally 60 to 70% underutilized. Monies can be repurposed from tuition reimbursement or training, right? So the macro theme was understanding that employers could provide optionality around benefits they're already offering, and then let the employee say, I'm probably not going to take advantage of that tuition reimbursement budget that you allocated for me this year, but I'd love to put it over here. The other thing that we've learned is that we've got to figure out how to budget for this, was the thing that they could say yes to, immediately, which was a financial health and wellness platform, a SWAT team around student debt. Because 61% of users say they have absolutely nobody to talk to about their student loan debt. So think about insurance and 401k and healthcare coverage. There are a lot of people you can talk to.
Right.
But the attribute that's the number one concern, they actually don't have anyone to talk to. And parents, by the way, we heard this equally from parents to millennials, right? So then we're like, okay. So there are all these other things that we could do that help the user and also help the employer say yes. And we call those on-ramps. So we've added a few additional on-ramps onto our product.
Oh, great. Yeah, and how do you sort of balance, or when you're getting this customer feedback, if there's, a bunch of different ideas that are coming out, how do you prioritize what needs to go into the platform next?
That, I feel, is, so how do we prioritize? So I think this is, I think, a frustration that my team probably has with me, right? Which is when you are in front of a volume of customers, and when you're in front of a volume of institutional investors, you really quickly hear what customers are willing to pay for. And unfortunately, that can be disruptive, right? Because you can go into 3 meetings tomorrow and learn that there's something really there. But one of the ways that we prioritize is frankly just resources that we have, where we are in a sprint and how as quickly as possible we can get to market the thing that serves our users and provides value to the user and provides value to the employer.
What sort of outside resources do you use to help with various aspects of the business?
Sure. So we have a couple of core partners that are probably common to us in the room. AWS, of course. AWS solves a lot of challenges around information security. I can't imagine starting a company back in the days where you had to have like a server farm, just expense, and then also security measures. Quovo is one of our core partners. So Quovo actually has a really exciting partner. Lowell Putnam is their CEO, and we went to Lowell early and said, okay, we have this problem to solve. When we send out payments to student loan servicers, it's kind of a black hole. Like, was the payment received? What is it not received? And Quovo has the ability through their account validation, data aggregation, and linking capability to say, yes, actually, that payment was that payment was made to the student loan servicer. So as you can imagine from an employer perspective, like the number one thing they care about is, did the contribution make it? And the number one thing the user cares about is, did the contribution make it? But we had to really innovate around a lot of the incumbents within the space because there was really a lack of transparency. But those are two of the partners that have been core.
Oh, perfect. And you know, as a founder in the Boston community, are there any other like local resources that help you, you know, run your business as well? Or?
Yes, I mean, I think Boston is such a special place. I think one of the resources is really just the founder community here. I think the founders here are like, I love just like the grit and the spirit, but I feel like also there's an opportunity to be very real. Like, here's the issue, here's what I'm struggling with, how have you solved this problem? And I feel like people are really open here. And I don't know, I haven't been a founder in other cities before, but that seems really special to me. That seems like really unique quality to Boston. I also do take advantage of MIT and the relationships. I paid a lot of money to go there, so I better get a lot of value out of it. But you know, the community around MIT is really strong and helpful, and the Martin Trust Center and the resources and expertise. Some of the professors that really focus on behavioral economics, which is a core focus that we've really built into the product experience for our users, is key as well.
Yeah, yeah, and it's great to, you know, great that you're enjoying the Boston startup community. Yeah, I think we've built up you know, pretty strong network here, and just, you know, as you build FutureFuel, sort of what are the like longer term goals, you know, that you'd like to see, if you're looking back, you know, or 5 years from now, you can say like, this is what we built, and this is something we changed. Yeah, what would your goal for the future be?
So our goal is to generate $30 billion of relief for those who have student loan debt. How we get to that number is 1 million users and generating about $30,000 of relief for those users. As an example, users that refinance through, we have a multi-lender refinancing marketplace that allows 15 different lenders to compete to refinance the loans for the user. And on average, we save users $19,000 through refinancing a loan and lower the interest rate by 1.7%. So if we look at $30,000, which is, you know, can that user refinance? Are they receiving a contribution from their employer? Are there others that actually we're enabling contributions from? Some of the things we'll talk about this fall. But $30 billion of relief, 1 million users, as quickly as we can get there, and that's one of the reasons why these distribution partners are so important to us. And
yeah, as an entrepreneur yourself, and we have you know, a bunch of entrepreneurs in the building, what sort of advice would you give to someone that's maybe just starting out their company and trying to figure out what the best steps to get started would be?
I think you just have to do it, like just the first step, because it's not a spectator sport, right? Like you can have the most unbelievable idea, nobody cares. I mean, you care, right? But, and that's an extreme statement. I remember Brian Halligan once talking about ideas, and he, was, you got to have momentum behind that idea, right? The idea has to generate, like you've got to drive it, right? That bias to action. So I think that it's important to have a strategy. I think it is super important to have a strategy, but there are a lot of people with a strategy and absolutely zero tactical plan or execution. And I think you just like break down that, and just like you asked, like how did you start talking to customers, or how did you get feedback, and just being a little clumsy and completely prepared to embarrass yourself, and that's like part of the it's part of the experience. So that'd be my advice. Just write down a couple things that are important to test the idea, and then just go do it, and don't be defensive about it. Because if someone's like, I don't really know, I don't really get that part, like that, I mean, what? Okay, that's an amazing learning opportunity. Well, no, you don't understand, it's this, okay, well, wait, there's a person's trying to tell you something. You gotta like, listen to that. I think that's really important as well, because then that's where you start to, the idea gets closer to commercial need, and then, that's really exciting.
Right. Yeah, listening to the feedback and or just being able to go out and going out and launch. Definitely hardest to take that first step, but once you do, it seems like there's a large support network around here that
For sure.
that can help you with their business. So what we're gonna do now we're going to take some questions from the audience. Awesome. But before we do that, just going to go through a quick, something that Startup Grind likes to do, sort of a rapid fire, pick okay. Out of two things that I'm going to say, just like, which do you prefer?
Okay.
So Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
The spring or the fall?
Oh, gotta say the fall, especially here in New England.
Yeah, New England falls are nice. Phone calls or text messages?
Context dependent.
Sure. Wine or beer?
Neither. Actually, don't drink. I know.
Google or Bing?
Come on.
Tried to trip you up there. Flights or road trip?
In general, I'm going to go flights.
And pop or country music?
Can we do a crossover? Is there a crossover option?
Or other.
That happens when I sing.
Yeah.
It's like the southern, it's a pop song. It's like Rihanna, but I'm back in the days of Azle, Texas. It's not really good, but it happens.
That sounds good. And then if anyone has any questions, you can feel free to ask them now, or does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, so like the model behind FutureFuel is to introduce kind of like a e-commerce marketplace in a way where you're bringing in kind of introducing competition among the suppliers of loans to drive interest rates down, at the same time recruiting like enterprise employers to perhaps participate as well and invest in their talent through kind of like a 401k matching type solution. Is that
Nailed it. That's perfect.
That's great. So just as a quick follow-on, do you guys have any current competition, or is this something that's like completely novel and no one else has ever done this before?
So good question. We do have a couple competitors, and I think it's so rare to time a net new category with market adoption. So I'm actually excited to see that there's competition because it's a $1.5 trillion market. And if you think about HR benefits payroll providers, for example, there are over 500 HR benefits payroll providers. So we actually have two huge total addressable markets. One is student loan debt, which unfortunately is growing at $100 billion annually. Take that in for a moment. And then the other side of that is the number of businesses just here domestically. So there's absolutely no way that we can serve that entire market. And our mission is to inspire users beyond, like go beyond debt. So I think that there are a number of different solutions we're going to see in the market in a variety of different areas, like Frank or Admit. They're more on the front end, more on the back end of the problem. And there are a couple of different competitors that are similar in their offering. We are differentiated in really important ways in terms of the value to the user and the value to the employer. It's also, we're a B2B2C, so we've productized, if you think about from a buyer perspective, the employer, so they're offering a new benefit, you have to make that really simple for the buyer. That's something we've done really well to eliminate that friction. But yeah, it is a net new category, but there are a couple of us in the space now, which is good. So we're all going after a different piece of the pie. Yeah.
Yeah, there are other questions?
How often do you find yourself iterating the product? So let's say your sales team, for example. I find that my sales guys have their ear to the ground much more than everybody else, so they hear what the customers want.
Yeah.
So how often are they going back to the product team and saying, this is what I'm hearing, and you guys put this into the platform? How does that work for you guys?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the question of how do we harness the feedback from the field and get that into product? And like, what does it look like? So we have Jess Merrill as our VP of sales, and Connor Fitzgerald, an account manager, and myself. So it's the three of us. And I'm going to say Jess and Connor because they're so awesome at closing the loop with the team. We use Slack, and there's a lot of communication via Slack that's really short and bursty, but also in terms of prioritizing new product innovation, but also closing the loop really quickly. Because in the early days, right, when you're launching, a lot of what we've done is manual, just for the customer launch, right? So employer logs in to our platform, they upload a CSV. So our first few customers, we were like, is that gonna work? So we uploaded the CSV for them because we thought, well, if there's a problem, we'll know and then we'll fix it. But you know, it's like kind of a white glove service to them anyway. Turns out our engineers are really good. It worked beautifully. But Jess and Connor are constantly in contact with the engineering team. I'm constantly in contact with the engineering team. We have an all hands every week on Monday for an hour, which is the eng side of the business tells what they've got going on, how they're pacing, and then we give an update. And sales, we generally take about 20 minutes of the all hands to talk about, this is what we learned, this is who we pitched, this is what we've heard, this is the oohs and the ahs that we're getting, you know, this is what people are really excited about. And our engineering team is in Lisbon, Portugal, so that communication is so important. And I mean, I think it's always tricky, even when you're sitting in the same building. But I think also I'm really fortunate because we just have the sales team, they're really strong communicators as well, as is our engineering team. So I think we really value that communication and we cultivate it, but I also think it's, I also got a little lucky.
Yeah, great response. And yeah, is anyone else? There you go. Yeah, Mike.
In your industry, with the financial services,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a fair question. There's a lot of potential partners, but maybe a lot of people might like this to hook onto the service. How much time do you think about focusing your business in terms of maybe an exit strategy, strategic partners? Is that you spend time, or how does that go with your thinking?
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's a great question. I think for our business in particular, I am really excited about strategics and strategic partners because the discussions that we're in today with some of these large channels we're launching, they have really started to approach us in terms of investment. And that alignment where they're bringing that distribution heft and we're bringing that innovation, I think can get us to our goal much more quickly, which is how do we touch 1 million lives or more? Because really impact is through scale, right? That's what I think, impact is through scale. So I did not spend a lot of time thinking about that question until about 6 months ago. And it's when the light bulb for me really started to go on with distribution and the power of that distribution to crack open the market and how difficult it is to do that on your own. Because unless you have a very large sales team, really tough to get that impact. Yeah.
And how do you balance or, sticking to goals like that, either the longer term ones like the 1 million lives or some shorter term goals with, changes in the company?
So I think the longer term goal is, it's really important to be super consistent. Like we talk about all the time, the mission and the vision of the company and the number of lives we aim to touch and serve. And serve is like core, right? It's like, how can we be of service to the user? How can we be of service to the employer? Because the more we serve the employer, the more successful we're going to be in reaching that user. But absolutely, I mean, it's every 2 weeks for us, we're releasing a new iteration of our product, and the ability to meet those milestones that we've committed to our shareholders, to our customers. We are hair on fire, like every day. And it's really frenetic, right? It's just time is completely against you. It's never on your side. You gotta bust ass. You gotta move. You gotta do it in the right direction, and you gotta know where you're going in the long term. But like this quarter, what are we doing? What are we hitting? What are we delivering? And then making that happen. And not everyone is a fit for that environment, right? And I think that's really important too. Is like understanding that as you're hiring, got to be like super honest with like what's gonna work, and not only the long term, but like right now, where you are right now, and then what you're going to be growing into.
So what do you look for when you're hiring in that type of personality?
So certainly an incredibly strong work ethic. I think it's just so. I think first it's kind of like pre-gaming, right? Where it's like, hey, we're pre-Series A. Like, yeah, it's awesome. Really, it's like we're pre-Series A. But really, because I think there's a lot of romance around, but really understanding that it is super intense, right? And I'm sure once we get through Series A, I will feel that is equally intense or even more intense, because now we have investors who the stakes are higher, right, in terms of expectation of delivery. But I think that work ethic, attitude, like integrity as a person, communication, super important as well. And obviously, fit in terms of skill, but fit is also cultural and yeah, so.
Perfect. Does anyone have an additional question? Sorry.
Definitely, we'll probably look at this 2 years from now and think that I had absolutely no idea what I was talking about. So I just want to throw out the disclaimer. This is all from my vantage point today.
No, I mean, you did a great job, like bringing your expertise and
thanks.
Your story, and helping everyone here, learn from your journey so far.
Thanks.
And again, like to thank you for sharing your story today, and everyone here for coming. And yeah, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be doing these every month, and we'll have some time to just you know, get to know each other better and network. Yeah, from here, and feel free to come up and ask any questions you want.
Thanks, Jason. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Thank you.